much welcome to this session, which is around one of the most important topic for the entire energy sector, for the entire energy security mission that the government has put in around pipelines of progress, wherein we are going to actually discuss around how the energy access can be improved through the proper infrastructure. So as part of this entire discussion, I understand we have already started late, so we've got about 40 minutes. We are going to discuss the entire part around the infrastructure for LNG, for gas, and how it is going to dovetail into overall government's plan, how overall vision for energy security to make India more Atmanirbhar. So infrastructure plays one of the most important role. Around that, we'll have views from our panelists. We have got esteemed panel today. We have industries who and who. We have, and you can see the names actually, what people we have. So without further ado, let me actually ask a very important question, and maybe I think the best question to ask to one of the leading oil and gas player, including who has got more than 13,000 plus kilometer pipeline with more projects in plan. So my question to Deepak ji, to you. Yeah. So Deepak ji, my question is, what is your viewpoint on this entire gas and LNG infrastructure? How it is going to contribute to overall India's security and independence plan? So would you please share that, sir?
Thank you, Harsha. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you have to just make the mic a bit closer like this.
Closer.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Harsha, thank you. First of all, good morning, everyone. My co-panelists, distinguished audience, and Harsha. Good morning, all of you. Harsha, this is a very, very important topic, and I think all these years we have been talking of gas-based economy. We have been talking of how we go from 6% to 15%. So I think all the discussions that we're doing here are basically around this key agenda and the key mandate and direction from Government of India. So like everybody else, we are all aligned to the Government of India vision of enhancing the 6% energy mix gas share to 15%. Now, coming to your question in particular, I think we all know there are three important pillars of gas-based economy, and that is energy affordability, energy accessibility, and energy availability. So what we're doing is, I think to actually push the envelope and take this gas consumption from the present 6.3 or 4% to 15%, the most important is that we raise the availability levels, we make gas affordable, and most important of all is make it accessible. Now, if you look at the pipeline infrastructure in the country, today we are talking of something like 24,000 kilometers of operational pipeline, and the national gas grid will be like 34,000 kilometers in the coming 3 to 4 years. There are certain missing links in the national gas grid which are now being taken care of. Maybe in the coming months, even those lines will be authorized. Now, why I'm talking about the national gas grid is because it is from here that you're feeding all your customers, all the industries, all the CGD entities, and everyone else. So national gas grid is most important when you talk of accessibility. But when you come upstream, I think you also mentioned about LNG. Now, it is, if you see the entire value chain of the gas, then LNG is most vital. And LNG is being sourced from overseas. Now in GAIL, for example, we already have 4 lease charters which ensure reliability of supply, which ensure which ensure security of supplies, which also ensures optimization of shipping costs. So that is one important area that we have done. Number two, I think now the LNG terminals on the west coast and the east coast of India, close to 44 MMTPA, are already existing. The capacities are getting augmented so that all that LNG that we are getting will get regasified and will be supplied through the pipeline. Besides that, almost all the terminals are having LNG storage tanks. That is extremely important. So you're creating a buffer at all the LNG terminals to store LNG and also have LNG security in times of need. Most importantly, across the country, we have set up some LCNG stations wherein you have small stations spread over the country where you take LNG and store it, and then from there you supply to those areas where pipeline is yet to reach, connectivity is yet to be made. So that is being done. And then we recently commissioned 2 small-scale LNG units in our Vijaypur facility. I think this is going to be a game changer. We have 2 units commissioned which will supply 18 metric tons of LNG per train per day. And this LNG can not only feed the far-flung areas, remote areas, but can also supply the LNG to the LNG ecosystem that we are developing for the long-haul vehicles, trailers, and trucks. So I think as far as accessibility is concerned, a whole lot of work is being done, both in gas infrastructure and LNG infrastructure. And this is going to be most crucial to have access to gas and LNG for our country if we have to take gas consumption from 6.4 to 15% by 2030. So this is extremely vital. I am sure my co-panelists have been a part of the system. They will agree with what we are saying. And I think this is almost known to each one of us. But I'm just saying it once again so that people are aware as to how we are developing this. This is my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. In fact, the 3 elements that you talked about, affordability, availability, and accessibility, actually set the agenda. With this in mind, my next question is around the part of availability and affordability. And this is to Mr. Chatiwal. Sir, what are some of the social and economic benefits that you foresee of this entire gas and LNG infra and how it dovetails? And also in terms of what are some of the policy or regulatory indicative areas of support that you would be looking at?
A very good morning to my co-panelists, invited dignitaries, delegates, and all of you. A very good morning. I represent Indraprastha Gas Limited, which is the largest CNG company of India, and we sell around 25% of the total CGD that is sold in the country. And as we know, before I come to the question, just a brief, that people talk about 3 A's, affordability, accessibility, and availability. But we in CGD companies, we believe in 5 A's. What are the 2 additional A's that we believe in? One is the acceptability. What do I mean by acceptability? That is that now a sense, there is a growing consensus among all that gas is a very low carbon alternative. And that is an accepted fact that if we, in our decarbonization journey across the world, gas has an important role to play. So there is a growing acceptance. Yes, this is a low carbon emitting fuel, and this has to be part of the decarbonization scheme. The second is adaptability. Now, India, as you know, sells around in excess of 100 billion liters of diesel, and we have 87% of that goes to the transportation sector. And out of that 87, more than 2/3 goes to the long haul trucks and buses. So that is a segment, and we believe that the fuel is such that it can be easily adopted in the present logistic arrangements. in the sense that the long haul trucks, the buses, they can easily be converted to gas or LNG or CNG, whatever. And it, what it does is it simply reduces your carbon emission by 30%. So with the existing setup, we can immediately reduce that, and that is a very low-hanging fruit or very easily doable thing that our country can do. And in terms of social benefit, I would say that the CGD entities, they can provide all the benefits, whatever is available, be it heating, cooling, cooking, or the transportation of the entire society. So that's the whole gamut that we have of the energy that we can provide to the society. And in that sense, we have an alternative. And in this perspective, I will give a different perspective on the issue of gas being provided, subsidized gas being provided to the poor households. We believe that the CGD entities can provide a much better solution in the sense that the present Prime Minister scheme is there, that Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. There is a housing for poor scheme. So in that scheme, if we can build in this CGD infrastructure, the pipeline connection, then the CGD entities can provide gas at 50% cost, what is, the government is spending right now. The present scheme is that 500 rupees the consumer pays, 500 rupees the government pays. So what CGD entities, we have worked it out, and we believe that we can reduce both the costs by 50%. In case the infrastructure is supported, the infrastructure is built by the government. Now, what that will do is it will provide a direct benefit transfer. Because the present scheme, there are chances of pilferages that you have an Ujjwala scheme, but that gas may not be going directly to the households. But in this scheme, the gas goes directly to the households. The second is the LNG that sir talked about, that Vijaypur, the GAIL is doing, but IGL is doing something similar, but in Delhi. And using the existing infrastructure that we have, the CNG infrastructure that we have, the spare capacity that is available in our existing infrastructure, using that, we are doing a pilot of converting gas to LNG using the existing infrastructure of CNG. What that does is it brings down the cost of capex as well as opex, because the existing things are being used and they will be used much more efficiently. So that is on the part of LNG, and we believe that going forward, the availability of gas within the country is going to expand in the sense that two more streams are going to come. Like right now, the biogas that is being produced in the country is only 1 or 2% of what is the projected capacity that government has, visioned. The government vision is 54 million per day. Right now, we are hardly 1 million. So there is capacity of 53 million. The potential is there that will be added to the kitty. And if you think about in terms of the total gas consumption that we do around 170, 175. So that is 30 to 35%. What this will do is it will provide a cheap, domestic, sustainable source of natural gas or biomethane, I would say. And at the same time, it reduces our import bill. Right now, we import around 50% of our gas. So that is going to go down. And even otherwise also, we believe importing liquid fuels is much, much costly for a country like India, because even if you look at the 5 years average, that is around $10 to $12 in terms of propane, and crude at present level is at $13 per MMBTU if we talk in terms of the heating value. Whereas gas has always been in the range of $6 to $9 per MMBTU. Leave aside a couple of years of distress due to outside factors like war and other things. So it is always a cheaper alternative. It is always a more cleaner alternative. So we believe that there is a future of gas and a few regulatory supports that we need. One is that when we talk of exclusivity in terms of infrastructure, we have a 25-year exclusivity for infrastructure of CGD. Now, at the same time, what that means is that no other entity can come in, because there is a growing acceptance that this sector is a capital intensive sector and it requires some amount of some period of time to give them time to recover their costs, whatever they have done. But there is an alternative fuel which is highly subsidized both at the consumption level as well as the infrastructure level. I'm talking about electric vehicles. So that is highly subsidized and that is being pitched against the existing fuel, CNG. While there is no harm in that, but we believe that LNG has got the equal amount of capability uh, what is being done by EV. What do I mean by that statement? Is that presently the EV, the consumer who is using the EV, is doing his bit, purchasing EV and charging it with electricity. But the electricity that is coming is not entirely green. It has some percentage of green energy, whereas it has coal energy also and other liquid fuels also. So the energy is a mixed fuel energy, whereas LNG in medium and heavy commercial segment, there is a growing acceptance that in the medium and heavy commercial vehicle segment, world over, there have not been many examples where electrification has been done, that EVs have been used in this segment. So the only option that is available is LNG. Once we accept that LNG is the only option in medium and heavy commercial segment or heavy duty segment, then the LNG used for that segment should be treated at par with EV. And the taxation benefits that EVs enjoy should be given to the commercial vehicle segment, we believe, as well as some incentives for setting up the stations. Just to give an example, China presently has 600,000 heavy duty trucks running on LNG. They have more than 5,000 stations running on LNG for fueling them. Whereas India has a hardly 250 to 300 LNG trucks, couple of stations. So I believe, as CGD entities believe, that we can easily do what China has done. We can easily set up LNG infrastructure along our quadrilateral, golden quadrilateral and other national highways, because the condition of these roads have become so beautiful that you can do, thousands of kilometers without any hindrance. So that's the kind of road. So same thing we can replicate in India. Only thing is this sector needs some amount of support in terms of parity with the alternate fuels. So those would be my initial take.
Well, thanks a lot. In fact, couple of thought-provoking elements that actually both Deepak ji has actually in terms of envisaged, and the point that you mentioned about how CGD can be part of the entire PM Yojana, so that you are actually starting from the base. And speaking of the LNG, and and then the EV. So I'm going to actually have these two questions deflected to my other panelists, especially around LNG, and this is to Nakul. Uh, Nakul, how do you envisage the entire LNG logistics? Because we talked about a lot of issues you must have heard of, Mr. Chatwal. And how can stakeholders drive the growth of gas demand? So, especially there is a point that is coming out, like with the LNG truck fill, you can actually go to 1200 kilometers, wherein the EV can take you 300. The entire thing on the LNG logistics, your point of view, please.
Thanks, Harsha. And first of all, it's a pleasure to be here this morning with all my esteemed panelists. Pleasure to be here at this very esteemed panel. And a big shout out to the audience, actually. It's the morning session on the final day of India Energy Week. So all of you have made a big effort to turn up. Thank you very much for coming. By way of introduction, my name is Nakul Raheja, and I head Shell's gas and power marketing and trading business in India, which we call Shell Energy India. Shell, of course, as you know, owns and operates the Hazira LNG terminal, and we've had a very long and successful, very proud history of operating in India, particularly in the gas business, and we are now very rapidly also expanding that in the power business, particularly in renewables. If I come to your question, Harsha, I think I really want to start by, first of all, just taking a moment to acknowledge the progress we've made as a country in the infrastructure we've created across the nation. Mr. Gupta mentioned, 24,000 kilometers of pipelines, another 10-odd thousand under construction, 47 million tons of regas capacity in terms of LNG terminals. These are all very considerable achievements that have, come to the fore in the last 10 or 15 years, and we are not done yet. There's a lot of more work underway to further expand this infrastructure. What's happening in the CGD space, I think, is truly unprecedented. I mean, we're growing at a rate in terms of infrastructure that we've never grown before. And this has not happened by chance or by accident. You know, this has taken deliberate choices that the government has made, deliberate actions that the regulator has followed up on, which is what is resulting in the infrastructure that we are seeing being created today. So it's great to see, that infrastructure come into the market. But if you look at utilization levels of this infrastructure, there is tremendous scope for enhancing that, right? And which is where your point on gas demand comes in. Regas terminals in India are roughly operating at about a 50% utilization rate on average. Last year we imported about 23 million tons of LNG, and the regas capacity is roughly twice of that. It's going to increase once Chhara is commissioned in the next few months as well. Pipelines is a similar kind of utilization, again varies from route to route, pipeline to pipeline, but significant scope for further utilization of our pipeline network. And then if I add gas-fired power plants as a kind of means of infrastructure, there the utilization is even lower. We are talking 10, 11, 12, 13% PLFs that they are running on, right? And this is pieces of infrastructure that was set up to operate on gas. So there is tremendous scope, therefore, for us to now shift focus from not just infrastructure creation, but I would say two other dimensions. One is very clearly demand creation, right? And within demand creation, I'll make 3 points. One, Mr. Chatiwal has already made, and I fully agree with that. I think the scope for LNG as a transport fuel in the heavy-duty vehicles segment is tremendous. I fully agree with him. India is one country that can rival China in terms of the scale of LNG absorption as a transportation fuel. The technology is proven, it's here. The market understands it. There's enough of an ecosystem available already to make it happen. And it will basically be, taken up only when it's cheaper than diesel. So cheaper and cleaner. There's no conflict between economics and environment, in this segment. The second segment I would really want to emphasize is gas-fired power, right? As a country, we are now deeply investing in renewables. We are, one of the lowest cost countries as far as renewables is concerned. But to balance out the intermittency that renewables brings, there is no better partner than gas, right? And as renewables moves from 12 or 13% of the electricity mix that it is today to maybe twice of that in the years ahead, we are going to need the balancing capability at the grid level to make sure that our electricity supply remains robust and reliable. And there's no better choice than gas, especially because we've got idle capacity anyway that's available, right? This doesn't even require more capex. In fact, most of the idle capacity is substantially depreciated, right? The third point I'll make on demand, I think, is that for a long time there has been the desire and the intent to include gas in GST. Right? And when we talk about the competition that gas has with alternate fuels, a number of the alternate fuels already are under the GST regime, even if they are dirtier or more polluting than gas. So therefore, I think, this is something that, again, should be taken up with urgency. It will help both the ease of doing business in the gas sector, but most importantly, it will help the economics of the gas ecosystem, eventually making gas more affordable for the end user. And that's the most important driver. The second parameter I want to also talk about is, so we talk about creation of demand, we talk about creation of infrastructure. These are all very physical things. The other final piece of the jigsaw that we need to fit in is the creation of competitive markets, right? And that includes both encouraging multiple players, allowing open access of infrastructure, pipelines and, city gas distribution networks after the exclusivity period is over. But also the creation of a deep and liquid financial market, which frankly doesn't exist today for gas. If we want gas to play a bigger role in our market, we need to find a way for our customers to be able to manage their risks and exposures which come with buying of gas, particularly on a long-term or index basis. And that can only be done if you have a deep and liquid market, particularly including a derivatives market, in the country. So I think the time has now come that we build on this infrastructure success that we've had, grow the demand, create more competitive markets, and then that will truly drive, I think, the age of gas in the country over the next few years.
Thanks a lot, Nakul. In fact, a couple of interesting points that you mentioned, and obviously on the regulatory aspect. One of the asks, obviously, as you mentioned, is to get it as part of the GST, and as Mr. Chatiwal said, get LNG as per the parity in terms of the benefits that are being given to EV. I just want to actually go into the other very interesting part and topic, and I'll request Mr. Mediratta ji. As part of the IGX, and there are key things, I'll come back actually, maybe to the panelists once again. But how do you see that the entire gas trading exchange and the gas exchange can drive the growth in terms of the demand? Because one of the question which is coming out, we do have capacity actually, and somewhere we do have idle capacity. We need the demand at the right place. So what are your views, and how that can be driven?
Thank you, Harsha, and very good morning to all of you. Part of the answer has been made by already Mr. Nakul, that we need a competitive electricity market. But why we think market is also part of infrastructure. One is that we always talk about hard infrastructure. We talk about pipeline network. We talk about production. We talk about having LNG terminals. But market is also infrastructure. It's a soft infrastructure. So when you put all of these elements together and you have market in place, then market gives you direction that what you need to do further, what right things you have to place at the right places. So that signals are coming from the market. Markets play a very, very important role in terms of one most important role is that it gives you price. That what is the price of the commodity. When it gives a price, that also serves very important purposes. One is that it gives you demand supply gap. How is the demand? If you see that price is high, you know that there is a higher demand. So it gives signals to suppliers that they can come with more commodity in the market. It gives signals to those who are interested in investing in the sector, because then it gives a signal for investments. And then when you have a very transparent market, then all of these signals go through the system. It gives confidence to the customer that whenever I want, I can go access. And that is also where the exchange is playing a role, that it gives you flexibility, it gives you choice, and customer becomes the centerpiece when market is operating in the best manner. And so customer becomes the king when markets are there. Everybody looks at what are the needs of customer, and then they try to meet those needs. And then their innovation happens in the market, and then the customer is served in the best manner. Another important part of the market is that you derive signals for demand also. Then now when we have seen that in last 2 years the prices have been higher, so it gives signal to the suppliers. So a lot of capacity in terms of LNG liquefaction is being added in the international market, and we know that in 2 to 3 years there will be enough LNG available to the market, and that will play to soften the prices maybe next to 2 to 3 years. So these are the benefits of the market. Now, what we need to do further in the sense that how we make a more creative, more competitive market is that there are some elements which we see is missing from our Indian gas sector. So if you divide into basic segments, then one I identify it as a supply side. Of course, on infrastructure side, we have heard that almost there is enough infrastructure is there. Rather, we are not fully utilizing it. It is only 50%. So so we need to have more demand and supply. So all of this, so we are getting signal from the market that yes, we need to add demand, we need to add supply. But only thing is where we see the problems in the system currently is that we have supplies. Our 55% of supply comes from domestic sources, 45% comes from imports. Out of 55% domestic, there is nothing much available for the market to play. So maybe you can assume that 3 to 4 or 5% comes to the spot market. And when it comes to LNG, again, we are importing almost 90% in the long term, 20% comes under spot. So out of that also, there is a small element which comes to the spot market. So basically, the gas which is available currently for a market to discover a good price is only 12 to 13%. This is very small. If you compare any matured market, we have seen that rather the spot market constitute almost like 50-60%. And lot of long term also comes into play and add to the spot market. But in India, this has not happened. So what our suggestion is that one is that we should see that how the more domestic gas should come to the open market or free market. For that, our suggestion has been to the policymakers that why not you keep a certain percentage of domestic gas to be sold on the exchange, so that if that gas comes to the exchange, there will be better price discovery, then there will be more competition, and then it will bring a lot of activity into the system, and then it may lower price initially for the customer and more demand will pick up. So that's one part of the supply side where we see there is a huge scope for us to do something. Second, on the demand side also, we have seen that we in Indian gas market, our biggest user is fertilizer. After that, it comes CGD, and then you have, of course, other industries are there, and power is very small part. Currently, it is only about 13-14%, which we should see that it should grow. Of course, there was one limitation of price, but otherwise, when prices will soften, we need to do further to see that how power plants should be able to use more gas. So one element is that. Second is fertilizer. It's a big sector, but that has not come to the market. They don't have access to the market because of certain limitation. We always suggest that there should be certain buying happen from the fertilizer side so that demand is more diverse. So important part of the market is there should be sufficient diversity. On the supply side, there should be sufficient diversity on the demand side. So in our case, we are missing diversity on the supply side also and diversity on the demand side also. So that is what we need to do further, because when we are thinking of markets, competitive market, liquid market, we have to open up, and that understanding or that appreciation should be there in all parts of policy making and regulation. And the third important part is that we need to liberalize in the sense that what is the regulatory and policy structure or mechanism put in place around gas. So since gas has been there, it's not a very old commodity for India. We have started seeing more of spot markets happening only recently after 2010, when the PNGRB Act came, and then LNG also started coming in bulk. So what we missed to do in last 10-15 years is that we should appreciate that most important element of a competitive market is that there should be open, transparent, non-discriminatory access to the network or infrastructure. So suppose you have some limitations on who can access to the infrastructure, there is a limitation, then there is a process involved, and then there is a barriers to those who want to access, then all of this actually puts a lot of hurdle on the market, and then it doesn't allow free flow or free trade of a commodity. So there we have suggestion to make that there should be open third-party access. Now what we need to do further is that in terms of access to the network or transmission capacity, we need to have a kind of transparent transmission capacity information available in the public domain, so that everybody knows that this much capacity is available. If I need something at a short notice, I should be able to access. Second part is that access should also be very fast. Today, the regulations allows access to the network only with a gap of 3 days. You need 3 days to confirm on the.
So thanks a lot. So I'm just cognizant of the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
In fact, for everyone's discussion, one of the most important part, which I don't want to leave from the discussion, but very interesting thoughts. I'll sum up and come on this one. See, one of the things that we talked about and everybody talks about is EV. We talk about emerging opportunities that are coming, and especially some of the renewables. So, my question to Mr. Jha, how do you see that this entire LNG is going to dovetail? Because see, there is another element also to coexist with the power as well. So we talked about gas-based fertilizer. We talked about the powers need to be clean. How LNG can coexist, and what are some of the innovative strategies that can be adopted by the players? Your point of view, sir.
Thank you, Harsha. And good morning to you all. It's a very pertinent question so far as natural gas evolution in India is concerned, because as of now, I am representing the CGD business of Indian Oil as well as IOGPL. From our perspective, natural gas, whether it is a destination fuel or transition fuel, I mean, still it is in the evolving stage. So at this stage, we cannot form a final view. But one thing is for sure that CGD entities, the way it has aggressively been distributed across India, now almost 300 GAs are working, and the whole of the India is mapped with CGD network. At the current level, for the CNG and PNG, most of the entities are getting around 60 to 70% of the their total sale that they are doing from the domestic sector. So almost 30 to 40% blending is being done from natural gas, and which is again hitting their bottom line. So what is the solution? Although government is well aware of this fact, and that is why we see on every quarterly basis, government is reviewing the allocations and doing whatever best which can be made possible for the CGD entities. But again, there is a limit to, of the domestic gas production in India. So what do we do? If you go through the finance minister's budget speech, she made on 1st Feb, she made two very important announcements. One was this CBG blending, and another was harnessing wind energy and offering VGF for up to 1 gigawatt wind power. So these are two major announcements which has taken place in this budget. CBG, though it started in 2017 with the Satat scheme, and it was intended that CBG will come to the rescue of CGD entities, and that is how both the industry will grow. But somehow, because of the various issues like taxation issues, there was not a clarity on how do this CBG would move to the CGD network, where it will get connected, whether it will be steel pipeline network or whether it will be city gate station. So now government has mandated that by 28-29, 5% blending has to be achieved. Government is also working on this, and I am aware of this fact that some paper has been prepared wherein some fiscal incentives are being thought of for those for those CGD entities who intend to connect to this CBG plants. So now what will happen that it will not be incumbent on the CBG plant owners to connect to the CGD network. Rather, it will be mutual. They will produce at their plant. So which will come to the great rescue to the domestic gas requirement. Second thing, what you are hinting that, finally we are operating our LNG terminals, our gas pipeline networks. Operation of both these things require again gas for running the prime movers. So again, and they are consuming then our own gas only. So what would be then best way? Best way would be that if we develop a hybrid kind of infrastructure where part of the power requirement can be met through maybe through the renewable power or through some alternative power, and it should be developed in a manner that whenever there is a lack of renewable power availability, they can immediately switch to gas. So these kind of steps, if taken, these are definitely going to make available more of gas for the industry. And again, what we are intending to, that we will be able to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. The red screen is already up, but it was very enlightening. In fact, if I have to sum it up, there are key 5 messages that actually coming out. The first is the future is CNG, future is gas, powered by LNG. Capacity exists. I think what we need is more support on the demand side, that the signals that you are talking about. In addition to that, in a last mile connectivity, I think that is the one part that infra support that we would be looking at. And in terms of the other part, having a level playing field, I think that's one of the most important part. And the fifth and the last, I would say, there is opportunity exists for other stakeholders to really come and combine and take it forward. So thanks a lot, everyone. I really appreciate, and big thanks to everyone for joining me. All right. Thank you.